Scaled Creations asks, what single project has brought your skills the most attention? Okay, actually, I want to answer that with something else. Here we go. Great. There's always some interesting pairs of questions in these. So Scaled Creations says, what single project has brought your skills the most attention, leading to more work? Leading to more work, that's the question. Is there something that stands out where potential clients have approached you after finding out you were behind a particular build? Yeah. When I made the XEMU spacesuit for the G4 launch with Kevin Pereira a few years back, I got a job based directly on that from Boeing to build the replica Starliner suit that is on display at Canaveral right now. That job absolutely led right to that job. And I didn't charge enough for it. I charged just enough for it, but I basically broke even on that blue Starliner suit. It was a tricky build. But brought your skills the most attention. And then Carolian Dry Goods, hello, Adam. Adam Carolian, the proprietor of Carolian Dry Goods. When freelancing, how do you promote your work and abilities without either being a blowhard or worse, disappointing your client? If promoting your work would disappoint your client, then that's just part of the job. Like, one of my favorite machining channels is Stefan Gottseventer, and I've talked about him. He was one of my favorite things a couple of years ago. And he does a lot of freelance work in his house. He's a machinist during the day and also during the weekends. And he does a lot of freelance work in his house. And sometimes he tells you what the part is for, but sometimes he just calls it a flux capacitor, which means that the client he's working for has allowed him to show what he's making, but not explain what it is. So that's just, there should never be a, if your client has said he wants you to shut up about a job, you should shut up about a job. And I have those in my past. A Fortune 10 company once wanted to hire Jamie and I to solve a PR problem they were having. Yeah, and that's the, you know, it was a really cool, we went down the garden path with this company. We got to interview a bunch of their key engineering people, and it was really thrilling. And the job never happened. It turned out not to be that necessary, but they were in the middle of a crisis and they consulted with us for a minute. And yeah, I'll never tell who that client is. Yeah, sometimes you got to hold on to those secrets. But Carolian, that's not the disappointing. So we'll eliminate disappointing your client from this question. It's like, that's just in the terms of the agreement. But how do you promote your work without being a blowhard? Well, you've asked the right question, because I am a constantly recovering blowhard. I love talking. I should listen more. Always, I should listen more. But it's not like you go from not being a blowhard to promoting your work and immediately being a blowhard. You're a blowhard is someone who's not listening to anybody else, and they're not letting oxygen come into the room. A blowhard brings a story right after that story. You tell the story about your difficulty in the grocery store, the blowhard has a worse story that happened yesterday and it's more cool, and like that stuff. You don't have to do that. I was having dinner a month ago with a fellow ambivert, someone who is like me, introverted and extroverted, likes being out in front, also likes being quiet. But we were talking about our strategies for not being a blowhard. For me, it was specifically not being a mansplainer. And one of her techniques, she was like, I've learned to let two people talk before I contribute again. I'm like, oh, I should put that one in my head. But there are so many ways to talk about your work without being a blowhard. Carolian Dry Goods, I happen to know, makes clothing. You could be wearing it. And someone says, where did you get that shirt? Now you're talking about your work. You can have examples of it up in your house and in your shop to talk about. You can, look, if you're talking to another manufacturer of goods, they're always, not always. I was going to say they're always interested in other people making stuff, but that's not true. Some people don't give a crap about other people making the stuff they're making. But like, you have to stretch pretty far to get to Blowhard, because in the middle there is someone, Carolian, since I know your work, I know what you make, or I know a lot about what you make. Like, you make stuff in which you have exercised a really high attention to detail. And the details are not fixed facts, but spongy zones that change movie to movie, sometimes scene to scene. All of that is really fascinating to talk about. It's super geeky, to be sure, but like, that's a fun conversation to find out. Like, people don't realize that in the same movie, an actor could wear what looks like the same shirt, and it turns out to be 3 actually different shirts. This completely happens in movies and in prop collecting, and it can be a real pain in the butt. That's an interesting conversation. I'm at dinner and someone's telling me about that. I'm like interested in. I think it is, as a recovering blowhard who still can monopolize the table without realizing it, I will say that it is inherently interesting to hear someone talk about what they're interested in, if that person is a listening computer and present in the room. That's it. So, I mean, you know, if ultimately the question here is how do you not be a blowhard, the answer is listen. And it doesn't mean you don't talk. It just means make sure you're really listening to the room. But Scaled Creations now says, what single project has brought your skills the most attention? And I really think it's my toolboxes. I think it's, so in the mid-90s, as I was developing as a model maker in commercial special effects and then film special effects, my tools all went into a pair of black leather doctor's bags, which I've always loved because doctor's bags are the coolest kinds of bags. And they came with me to Industrial Light and Magic. So when I arrived at ILM, I had these wheeled doctor's bags that had parked on either side of my bench. And, you know, I was the new guy with the weird toolkit. Like, that was all by design. Jamie Heineman started wearing that beret and choosing that mo because people remembered him. And when people remember you, they call you again for work. And so I had these black leather doctor's bags at work, and I was using them for the first few weeks when Michael Lynch came up to me and said, oh, you know, those, I noticed you're spending a lot of time reaching down to get stuff. Those might be easier to use if you put them on scissor lifts. And he said this to me on a Thursday afternoon. Now, he was kidding, but I was like, that's a great idea. And so I went home that night, and over the following weekend, that was a Thursday, I built a pair of scissor lifts. Actually, reader, I built 2 sets of scissor lifts. Because the first set collapsed under its own weight when I put the toolbox on them, and I had to rebuild them again much stronger. And I came in on Monday with the leather bags on scissor lifts. And we just did an interview with Michael Lynch about the 3210 buildings all closing down, the Kerner Boulevard ILM buildings. And Michael told that story with me there, saying, I came in the next day with the scissor lifts. And frankly, even though it wasn't the next day, it was 4 days later, I kind of knew that if I came back at the end of a weekend, the story would spread that I had done that. Like, I wanted exactly that kind of, like, I wanted to show that I was fast and obsessive and dedicated and nuts in a certain way. Like, all of those were things I kind of wanted to establish, and I think the toolboxes really did that. Thank you for watching that video. Are you as sick of the tosses to membership as I am? Good, because here's a brand new one that I recorded today, and it's nice and short. There are 3 tiers to tested membership, and they all offer awesome stuff. Find out about it by clicking the join link below. We'll see you there.